I'm Bane French of De-Evolution. The snows have receded and I want to take a few hour exploratory trip, maybe find some antler sheds or some winter kill or other gross stuff. I thought I'd film the phases of this trip, including the making of char cloth for Flint and Steel fire, going through the gear that I take on a shorter trip like this, finding and processing FATWOOD, reviewing the acronym F.L.A.M.E for fire building, actually making a fire with Flint and Steel, constructing a quick pot suspension mechanism, and finally, enjoying a cup of coffee. I want to go over the gear that I take with me in the woods. The legendary bushcraft educator Dave Canterbury developed the 5 C's of survival gear to have with you. And I like that construct a lot because it gives you a framework in which to think about your gear. The first C is cordage. Bring plenty of it. It doesn't weigh very much and it's so useful. Then container. For me today, it's some water, a pot, and a cup. Then cover, gloves, and a lightweight jacket. It could be a tarp, a bivvy, sleeping bag, and then cut. The U-pick knife, the triple threat nomad, and a saw. I like redundancy in cutting tools. Now, not all 3 of these are really necessary, but I like to have them with me, and I'm not worried about weight. And the 5th C is combust. Flint and steel, grass for our fire. Redundancy. Again, there's always a ferroarcturus and a lighter in my kit. When I look at what I usually took with me, even on short trips, it was more than just the 5 C's. So to build on Mr. Canterbury's method, I've added some C's. Combat. This signifies a way to protect yourself that's more effective than just flailing about with your axe. It's usually, for me, oleocapsicum spray, OC spray, or bear spray, a firearm, usually both. I include insect repellent in this category, primarily for ticks. I got my bow and arrow with me today. The next C is calories. A tin of fish, a bag of nuts, and I work with Hammer Nutrition, and I really like their bars. And I'm including some coffee in this category. The last C is communications. Today it's my phone, which is doubling as a camera. Now all these items will easily fit in a small haversack or on my belt, and following a method like this minimizes the chance of forgetting something important, and it's applicable and can be adapted for short trips or much longer trips. With that next fire mentality in mind, I'm looking for FATWOOD. Already thinking about my cup of coffee. Now this looks promising. Let's take a closer look. In the book I wrote, FATWOOD, The Complete Guide to Nature's Greatest Fire Tinder, I describe a 6-step sequential method of FATWOOD recognition. 1, a gray exterior, largely devoid of vegetation. 2 is a solid percussive report. 3 is a chalky, grippy feel with the knife. 4 is the color, ranging from yellow, amber, even darker colors sometimes, purples, blacks, charcoal. 5 that heavenly turpentine aroma. And 6 is its ability to readily combust. A regular stick just can't do that. I'm going to cut off a piece of this to take with me. Love it. You never know what you're going to find out here. Here's an old style coffee pot under some FATWOOD spears. The woods are wet, but on the underside of surfaces like this is commonly extremely dry. Good for kindling, tinder, and also a platform on which to build your fire. Another really dry piece. I just got to show you this piece. It's a dead, decomposing log, and there's these knots. This piece just flaked off, and you can see what the inside of a limb looks like. Those are knots, and that is solid FATWOOD. It's so durable, it can hold up to the elements for decades. I'm going to process up this great piece of FATWOOD. I like to cut them long enough for belly wedging to really get leverage with the knife. Now the Yupik has a really sharp spine to create these fine curls called Maya dust, readily ignitable. These curls are readily ignitable with a lighter or matches, ferrocerium, but not from sparks from Flint and Steel. For us today, they're going to act more as an accelerant. I'm going to process up this beautiful piece into smaller kindling. It's a good idea to stabilize it with something that doesn't have its own blood supply. I came up with the acronym F.L.A.M.E some years ago, and I did a YouTube video on it. It just provides a methodology for fire formation that will stand up regardless of seasonality, precipitation, or fire urgency. So F stands for freeze. You've identified a need for a fire. Stop, think it through. L is location. This is where you actually want your fire. safe spacing, safety overhead, some method of containment. I like to dig a depression that contains that precious heat, and that's why all de-evolution cutting tools have a digging function. Not today, because I'm not going to stay here. And I like to build the fire on a bone dry platform. And on the inside of bark and other fallen woody structures can really be dry. A is acquire, and this is the collection of combustible material of three sizes: tinder, kindling, and fuel. And always more than you think you'd need. M is make, and this is the fun part, which is why it's commonly done on the front end. But it's just the transfer of heat to tinder, and there's many heat sources: matches, lighters, ferrocerium rods, friction, and sparks from high carbon steel, which what we're going to attempt to do today. And E is extend, and this is turning that delicate flame into something durable and formidable, providing warmth, security, companionship, light, a means to purify water and cook food and make coffee. I'm processing up my tinder bundle. This is really fine material on the inside of cottonwood bark. Trying to do it over a dry platform. You know, fatwood falls on the ground, gets a little moist. It's no big deal, but it is for your tinder bundle. Yeah, that should do. This is a char cloth I made the other day. I picked out kind of the brown pieces that weren't fully cooked. Find a sharp edge on your flint. This char cloth can be pretty meager. Not a lot of burn time, so I always add some extra. Put on that Maya dust. Once that fatwood catches, you're laughing. It burns so well that even if your other materials, excuse me, a little damp, it'll matter not. Sand hills. Just letting this fire burn down a little bit. I paint my arrows pink because I lose so many of them. I want to heat water for coffee. And there's lots of ways to do that. I could just set the pot right in there, but I want to build a simple suspension device. Just consists of a pole, a length of paracord, and a toggle. I'm not going to stay here long, so it doesn't need to be particularly adjustable. I'm going to fix this arm here securely. I cut about a 4-inch length of a green stick. I'm going to put a clove hitch on this. So you wrap, cross over, wrap again, and then go under itself. It's a clove hitch. Suspend it how you want it. Try not to burn it. Then do the same thing here. There's a method of pot suspension using a toggle that I first saw described a few years ago by Matt Mercer of Black Hat Bushcraft. And it's really cool. It allows for easy vertical adjustment. Put the toggle through here, suspend it wherever you want, and just give a simple wrap over the toggle again. I'm using clean water. I'm just trying to heat it for taste. But if I was using surface water, it should be boiled for at least a minute. A rolling boil for a minute will kill protozoa like Cryptosporidium or Giardia. It'll kill bacteria like Salmonella, Shigella, Yersinia, Campylobacter, E. coli. And it'll also kill viruses, rotavirus, enterovirus, norovirus, hepatitis A, among others. So this 1 minute recommendation is probably valid for altitudes of 6,000 feet or lower. And the higher you go, the longer the boil needs to be. I wanted to break this springtime in Montana little trip into segments, just to show how using tools can really result in some meaningful tasks outdoors. So obtain basic education, have quality gear, and try these things for yourselves, because that's when you really learn. And keep it fun. I think it's too hot right now.